coach, I'm ready to play fantasy. I know I turn 2 in a day, but the lace isn't hot in my veins. I can turn 2 in every way, so I turn to YouTube today and smash play. I'm prepared to listen. The X-Flip and whip got me looking way past the pitches. Statistics all that I know, and I know that who is on first, he can say I'm ready to go. I ain't trying to steal second or third, cause I wanna win first. How am I to put all of these numbers to words? I know the terms from A to Z, it's like a gift and a curse. I know the difference between a splitter and a curve, but if I can't put it into points, man, then what's it worth? I need the truth, I need knowledge. Found this podcast with all of it, but what they call it? Turn 2. Turn 2, what it do? Win leagues, catch out. Peace.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Turn 2 podcast brought to you by rotofanatic.com. I'm your host, Matt Williams. You can find me on Twitter at METTWI77IMS. We are joining you live on YouTube and Twitch. Go ahead, and if you want to jump into the comment section, you're going live. Jump in there. You can make comments all you want. We'll answer the questions as we go, as we continue on our division series going over and undervalued players. We are here at the NL West. Tons of great players there. Joining me as always is my co-host, Mr. Brian Seymour. And we have a couple of special guests, but for now, what's up, Brian?
Doing good, Matt. We got a lot of drafts going on right now, late January. I don't know about you guys, and we'll kind of do the roundtable and everything here, but this to me, I feel like the most amped and the most, like it really, really feels like baseball season now. And I think that's because football, thankfully, in my opinion, is winding down. So all systems go for baseball.
And said we are joined by a couple of great guests. First off, you may know him. He's been on the show. Actually, I think both of you guys have been on the show. But you may know our first guest over running things at FTN, the Fab Whisperer himself, the Roto Gut, Vlad Sedler. Thank you for taking the time, Vlad. Welcome to the show.
Matt, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Good to see you guys, and I'm looking forward to our discussions today.
All right. Also hanging on the other corner of the screen, Mr. Jorge Montanez, Roto Nino on Twitter, Roto_Nino, over at NBC Sports Edge with me. Are you ready to talk some NL West?
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure, Matt. And yeah, first time talking to Brian and Vlad face to face here online. So pleasure to meet you guys. And yeah, I mean, Vlad and I kind of, I'm over here the Giants fan, Vlad the Dodger fan. So we'll have some good discussions today. That's for sure.
All right. So for anyone who hasn't been catching up on the series, we basically are going from division to division, going over just under and overvalued assets and, and the opposite for hitters and pitchers, and going through some of our later round picks that we like, so we can kind of break down some players, have some back and forth discussion. So we always start with our guests, and we always go way too long on the show. So we're just going to jump right into it. Starting with George, underrated hitter for the NL West. Who is your guy?
Yeah, so my guy for underrated hitter is I'm going with Mikey Strepski. I was just looking at the ADP at the NFBC from January 1st, and he's been going 273. We've all been drafting, we've all been doing these DCs, and you'll notice that outfield kind of dries up by this point. It could be difficult to feel great about your outfield 4 or 5. And he's one of these last guys going that has, he's going to play full time. And you look at his profile, we kind of knew that he wasn't going to sustain, the 370 BABIP, in 2020 when he hit 297. But it really just came crashing down to 254. He ended up with a 224 average, but still hit 25 homers, has good plate discipline. So he still, scored 75 runs, drove in 71. And really, the only thing that changed is that BABIP. The strikeout rate stayed consistent, barrel rate stayed consistent, 10%. Even the contact rate is just slightly improving little by little. But really, the only thing I can really point to in this profile is that BABIP. And so, I think it was maybe a bit of overcorrection. He played through a couple injuries. I think it was a thumb and might have been an oblique as well. So kind of had some nagging injuries. I think he's primed to bounce back a bit. I wouldn't expect him to hit, to even the 270 that he hit in 2019, but I would absolutely expect that batting average to come up a bit along with that OBP. And I think he's a pretty solid, outfielder. You can get him as your outfielder 5 at this point where he's going.
Yeah, I think he seems to be one of those hitters that are like just just underappreciated because he doesn't really shine in any particular area, but he's going to give you a lot of counting stats as far as runs and RBIs. And that seems to be something that seems to separate a lot of, at least beginners. That's a lesson that people need to learn later in rounds when you're taking shots on rookies or something. These kind of guys sometimes fall through the cracks because they just fill up the stat sheet. And, you got to look for guys that are hitting at the top of the lineup. Vlad, do you have any thoughts on Mikey Strepski?
Yeah, I think he's an absolutely solid player and a pretty solid fantasy asset for the range that he's going in. And to be honest, I think a lot of folks may overvalue, especially now in late January and even in February, the way that roster resource and people project the lineups to go. And there's no reason why a Yaz who's hitting well can't find himself in the top third of the lineup. There's, Brandon Crawford can turn back into the pumpkin that he was for the previous decade very, very easily. There's no guarantees of Tommy La Stella's health atop the lineup there if he's still going to be a part of it. They'll probably add somebody. I can see them adding a Nick Castellanos type. We'll see what happens there, but he's an absolutely fine pick. And as far as the batting average, of course, I mean, you saw that major fluctuation from the pandemic season, the 297 to the 224 drop. I think the answer there is going to be somewhere in the middle, but a guy with basically 240 ISO over the course of his career, a little bit of a late bloomer, but he's solid. Absolutely somebody I would be looking at in the range where he's going.
What do you think, Brian? He seemed to be someone that was a bit overvalued last year, but yeah, he settled into where he should be appropriately being taken now. If anything, yeah, he's now well worth. There's actually room for a little bit of return on investment. Any change of opinion with Yastrzemski?
I feel pretty much the same way. I do have a running theme with the Giants. Obviously, I'm not stating anything new, but it's just the fact that, every single person, their at bats are at risk because of the platoon advantage in every single game. So I might worry about that as opposed to maybe some other guys that are going kind of around his range. But like George said, I mean, you're pretty much getting him as like your fifth outfielder. So at that point, if you think you're going to get 130, 135 games from the guy, decent power, he's not killing you anywhere. I don't know that necessarily call him like underdrafted or underrated necessarily, but I like it, Matt, you kind of said, I mean, he's solidified his skills here. So I think there's some comfortability with him anyway, which is good.
I do think there's several rounds of players that I would value under him going. So I think I'm more with George here. But yeah, I mean, he's boring and he's undervalued. That's how a lot of people become undervalued because they're boring. So let's head over to Vlad. Here's another player that's not boring at all. In fact, your undervalued hitter is actually Brian's overvalued hitter. So we're going to have a little bit of discussion here. So Vlad, hit us with your undervalued hitter for the NL West.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk him up too much, but at the same time, transparency, baby. That's what we got to do here. But just to me, just feels like a really over analysis, or basically just based on what happened last year and the fact that he was playing injured for essentially the entire season and just like shuffling, trying to grasping at straws, trying to get his switching up his approach at the plate and just so many things.
All of a sudden, we didn't actually say the player. We're talking about.
We haven't
Cody
said his
Bellinger,
name yet, actually.
Oh, we didn't. Oh yeah, Mr. Cody Bellinger.
By the way, audience can guess.
You could see him right there in the corner. I got him hanging there. So, and again, it's not. Try to be as hard as I can on my own players or the players of the teams that I like. So it's not really a homer thing, but a guy that basically came out of the gate in 550 plate appearances as a rookie who hit 39 home runs. Fast forward a couple of years later, MVP of the league. And this, obviously the struggle he's gone through since the beginning of 2020, and all of a sudden he's off the map and he's going in the hundreds, like low hundreds. That to me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. From what I understand from the folks that I know, that Bellinger does feel great. He's working out. He's got no issues or pain whatsoever with the shoulder, and he's mashing. And so those days of him hitting, towards the bottom of the lineup and really struggling, I really feel are over. He's a fantastic target for me there. Maybe somewhere subconsciously there's a little bit of homerism. I can't deny that. But again, this is a guy that just kind of does it all. Of course, you're not expecting much as far as batting average is concerned, but a return to 35 plus home runs, 10 to 15 steals, and possibly hitting right there in the middle of the lineup, I think is very possible.
All right, here. So I'm going to direct this directly over to Brian because he obviously has a direct opposite viewpoint. So what aren't you buying into? I mean, he highlighted the struggles already, Vlad, but why aren't you buying into the discount?
Well, Vlad, let's just face it. I mean, this is all homerism on your part, right? I mean, this is what that's what the thinking is here, right?
Of course. That's how we play fantasy,
Yeah, exactly. I just pick Cardinals too. But no, I feel man, and Vlad, you may be right. You have more insiders with the Dodgers than I would claim to have, but I feel like there's just so much risk, and like there's just been so much up and down that like he's a guy that I just am going to cross, and I have crossed totally off my draft board. I do understand the price that he's going at now, which is like what around it's like round 8 or something currently, isn't it?
100, basically between 90 to 110.
Yeah. Looks like actually recently he's gone as late as 126 in the last few weeks. But yeah, it's just there's just so much risk and like so much tinkering, and even like the fact that he just got hurt on the the celebration with the shoulder thing and the playoffs and stuff like that. It just is. There's just a lot of like weird random stuff that freaks me out a little bit that I don't want to get involved. I don't really know what I would be paying for. But I see where you're coming from. I mean, this isn't like last year where he was still going, early second round, late first round, or drifting to the third round or anything like that. You are now getting him at, if he would come back and do even something close to what he did back in 2019, I mean, obviously that's all profit. So I certainly understand why somebody would be interested, because what we've seen in the past, this is more a reflection of me and how I play. And I just the risk that I feel like is there, which to me is still too much risk, even for round 7 or 8. I just can't. I don't want to get involved with Bellinger myself.
It's funny. It doesn't feel like risk. It just feels like confusion, right?
Because right.
The MVP season, at the very end of the MVP season itself, he kind of like struggled and changed his swing, and then he came out and had that fluky injury where he got stepped on basically, and then he heated up at the end of the playoffs to kind of heat everyone up. So it's more. I mean, here you're out on him, Brian. But if he became an MVP talent immediately this year, would that really shock you?
I'd be moderately shocked. I actually would. Yeah.
Hold on, Vlad. Would you be shocked? I know you're saying he's undervalued, but if he just returned to like peak form, would that shock you?
No, that's actually what I would be expecting, and especially a little glimpse of that in the playoffs when he wasn't hitting for much power, but hit 350 with a 440 OBP and actually stole 5 bases. So just a little bit when you see him healthy and actually locked in, a lot of it also I think is mental, and hopefully he can get over that over the course of this winter.
All right. Well, George, what do you think of you? We got to bring you in here. Cody Bellinger, you're a Giants fan, so try to be down the middle here. What do you think of Cody Bellinger? Are you going to get some shares?
I could see all the points here, and Matt, I think you put it well. It's like a lot of confusion, right? But I think Brian made the point of a lot of weird randomness, and I think it is that weird randomness that can have him just primed for a bounce back, because it isn't right the chronic soft tissue kind of. He's not one of those kind of guys. It's just been kind of weird, fluky kind of things, and yeah, I can absolutely see it. He's one of those guys that if I'm entering one of these DCs and I want to shoot for an overall, he's perfect. I might have a share or two, but yeah, I don't have one yet. I haven't. I haven't taken that dive yet, but no, I can absolutely see it.
Non-committal. I got it.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Cody Bellinger we were talking about. He's someone that could easily dramatically shift overall competitions this year because you're not spending a very early round pick to get him, but obviously if he bounces back to form, you're in pretty good shape. Brian, who's your undervalued hitter for the NL West?
Everybody's going to love this one. My undervalued hitter is Eric Hosmer, who is currently going as late as 329 over the last 3 weeks. Now, this is purely, I'll say right up front, this is a volume play. This isn't some kind of, I think Hosmer is going to, I don't even remember any glory days with Eric Hosmer, but this is purely a volume play. And I feel like it's really
a couple of weeks there, that first half of the season where everyone thought the launch angle had arrived.
Yeah, and then it totally didn't. So I'm also not a big Hosmer fan just because he was the main guy from the Padres. We'll talk to him with the Fernando Tatis incident a couple years ago. I wasn't a fan of that at all. But I think this is a good volume play. And it's funny because we were all just talking off air before we came on about first base at some point kind of just totally dries up on you and you're like scrambling and you don't know what to do. And to me, it's kind of astonishing that Hosmer is still going this late. He's gone as late as, oh my goodness, he's gone 383 in the last few weeks. With some of the first basemen and how barren it gets at that point, I understand it. Not a lot of excitement here, especially out of a first baseman. But again, Padres gave him that ridiculous contract a few years ago. The guy is likely to play. I know they don't have as much depth as they did. I think Vlad, actually, you just tweeted, I think it was you, about how porous their lineup looks right now. So Hosmer's going to play. So for me, at 329, first base, when it's starting to dry up at that point, I just think he's an undervalued hitter. It's not me betting on some kind of big season from Eric Hosmer, but I think it's a really good volume play that late right now.
I don't have much enthusiasm for Eric Hosmer. I drafted him because of the reasons you actually said. I first base, I had gotten sniped a couple times, and then I basically at one point went, "Oh, the hell with it! I'll draft other people." And then like my fallback options have gotten drafted. I'm like, "All right, Eric Hosmer's the guy." He lost playing time a little bit down the stretch, but I mean, as of right now, he's definitely going to be playing every day for the Padres. Maybe they trade him. It's a terrible contract. They were talking about like even giving away a prospect just to get someone to take it. But for now, he should be playing. What do you think, Vlad? Is Hosmer someone that you think could be worth just late round plate appearances?
I mean, I don't necessarily have a cross off list. I guess there's a point where not everybody there, but there are a lot of players if they fall far enough that I would consider. He's not really somebody that really interests me at all. The thing I was trying to figure out, I mean, I understand he usually is pretty solid in the the runs and RBIs, usually a nice helpful there. But he's not hitting in the top third of the lineup anymore. At least he wasn't for the most part last year, mostly fifth and sixth. And again, I don't want to give just a glance at last season in that small sample, but he played 150 games and somehow ended up with 565 plate appearances. So I don't know if he was just shifted out or taken out of the game often. And at the end of the day, only 50 runs, 65 RBIs. Again, we're looking at just one season, but it's concerning, especially if they add a couple of guys to that team or if they add somebody like a Rizzo, for example, also another lefty. Like, what does Hosmer become? He could end up honestly becoming a platoon guy sooner than we think. So for me, I would assume that he would have better numbers than last year, because I don't know how you only score 110 runs, RBIs combined. So something's got to give there. But I don't know. I don't necessarily see it, but I won't hate on somebody for liking him.
Would you rather have Eric Hosmer or like Rowdy Tellez?
I would rather have Rowdy for the most part, because that's just because the way that I build, where I'm usually pretty cognizant of batting average as I go, so that I can afford to take on some of those batting average drains who give me the excess power.
All right. And going over to George here, who would you rather have, Eric Hosmer or Rowdy Tellez? Or if you're looking for a corner infielder, would you be fine going with like would you rather invest that spot in like a position eligibility guy like Wilmer Flores, who managed to crank out 18 home runs, maybe something like that? Or do you like Hosmer as the volume play?
I mean, where he's going, you're kind of taking him as a reserve and, maybe a backup corner infielder. And yeah, as of right now, we know he's going to get those plate appearances. He's got a solid, at least a solid batting average floor. But no, I think I would rather take the chance on like Rowdy. I do like Wilmer, and I know Wilmer's going like in the same range. He's got that what is it, first, second, and third eligibility. So he's got eligibility everywhere. Yeah, just kind of really boring pick here, right?
That's what I like. Well, how about Eric Hosmer or Lamont Wade? Because they're very close.
I prefer Wade just because I would be able to kind of play him in NFBC on the half weeks. That's kind of what I like, to be able to kind of get that pop stolen base on, they go play 4 in Coors or something like that against righties.
Gotcha.
So nobody likes Hosmer but Brian, and I drafted Hosmer, and I still don't like Hosmer.
A lot of hypocrisy from you on this show the last couple weeks, I will say.
Yeah, what can you do? So moving over to my my underrated here is Charlie Blackman. He's just being drafted too late. He's another boring guy. His speed days are behind him, but he's still going to give you a decent batting average. It was a little down last year, but most of his metrics suggest he's going to return to a career norm. He's sticking in Colorado. He has an untradeable contract. So I expect him to give you, highish average. I wouldn't be shocked if he just comes out with like a 290, 280 above at least. he's going to give you 70 to 80, maybe 80 plus runs, 80 plus RBIs, and like 15, 20, maybe 25 home runs. It's nothing bad. So I don't know. He's a more exciting version of Eric Hosmer. I don't know, but for what he gives you, it's almost like the argument with Mikey Strepski. It's just underrated counting stats that people just kind of write him off. He's getting a year older, but the chances of him outperforming people going significantly higher than him are pretty good, in my opinion. Vlad, any change of opinion on that? What are your thoughts on old man Blackman?
I'm fine with it there. I think I'm always a sucker for the Coors play, especially because you know exactly how you're gonna play it, and especially now it's not Charlie Blackman, your outfield 1 from a couple years ago. It's not Charlie Blackman, outfield 3 from last year. It's a whole different story. It's outfielder 4 or 5, and you can easily place them on the bench when the matchups don't line up in your favor. So absolutely in for plays like that. And then yeah, I mean you get guys like that. Wilmer Flores, that these guys that are going to go to Coors at some point, and when they're going to play against. You could see it up ahead. Okay, they got a bunch of Flores got a bunch of lefties. Fantastic. I'm going to get in my lineup. Same thing. Blackman's at home. A bunch of righties coming up. Perfect spot. So no issue with Blackman. I probably need a couple more shares myself.
All right. That does it for the underrated hitters. We're going to get into a little bit of bad news, overrated hitters right now. Starting with you, George, who's the guy that you want to start us off with? Who's your most overrated hitter in the NL West for fantasy?
So I settled on Chris Taylor here, going at pick about 135, and it's just the cost here relative to a lot of guys with similar profile that I like going a lot later. Guys like Avisail Garcia, Andrew Benintendi, Lourdes Gurriel. Gurriel won't give you the steals, but much safer batting average. And so, I mean, with Taylor here, I looking at his profile, I mean, he's been able to sustain that really high BABIP for several seasons now, but he's getting to the point where you wonder how long that's going to hold up, especially with the 28% strikeout rate. I also question, as long as Mookie Betts and Trey Turner are healthy, where he's going to hit in that lineup. Now with the DH, does he settle, 7th, 8th, 9th? I do like the in middle and outfield eligibility, but yeah, I think for me, it's just a little risky here at this point when there's guys that I like going a bit later that can provide similar value.
It seems like people underestimate Taylor every year, and usually it's where's the at-bats going to come from, and it's the Dodgers love him. They gave him all that money. They're going to play him. He finds a way. Life finds a way, but he is going a little earlier than normal. Coming, especially he gave himself a nice little boost in the postseason, going all beast mode on everybody. So I like him, but I can see how you can argue that, he's going a little early because it's certainly a lot earlier than anyone's accustomed to taking him. So starting with you, Vlad, since you are the resident Dodger fan here, how are you feeling about Chris Taylor here going a little more expensive than usual?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't landed on any yet. I've only done probably a handful of drafts, but to me, it's pretty wild how he was basic. I mean, there was a point in the season a few months in where he was literally like top 3 in runs scored, and he was barely ever in the top third of the lineup, and the guy was just producing, and he is solid. The extra position of eligibility is helpful, I think, in the format of the draft champions that we're playing right now, and the Dodgers love him, so they're always going to find a way to get him in. He just kind of feels comfortable there. You never know. I mean, we kind of saw the way that Turner, once he came over from the Mets to the Dodgers, just became a completely different player, like a hero to the team, and was really efficient and good in fantasy. Maybe that's something that we see from Taylor this year. I'm not overly enamored. I think there are other players in that range that I think I prefer. And I do think that the batting average can potentially be a drain. He can be very inconsistent at times, but somehow just wild to me that he scored 90 plus runs, not even hitting at the top of the lineup.
So you, just to sum up, do you kind of agree with George that he's a little overvalued right now, basically?
I would say so. Slightly.
How do you feel, before I get to Brian here, how do you feel about blanking on him? who's his main competition down there every year is the rookie.
Oh, Gavin Lux.
Gavin Lux.
Yeah, Gavin Lux.
What's going to happen, and this happens sometimes, is you're just like in on a guy. Like he was one of my guys, like around 200, 220 ADP. I was always making sure to grab myself a Gavin Lux beforehand, even in the main events and everything. And man, I just didn't like what I see. He feels to me just a little, I don't know, even just like kind of his a little like cocky, like he's been doing it for years. And just, he's like, oh, I'm on this cool team and we're winning and stuff like that. What's that? Yeah.
Kind of the way Clint Frazier acted, right?
Yeah, a little bit. And maybe I'm overblowing it. Maybe it's just the way that I look at it. But, so what's going to happen is I'm going to be completely out on him. And then all of a sudden he's going to go off. And I know it has nothing to do with me, but I can just see that happening. So somehow they'll get a way in, but we'll see. There's still more players I think the Dodgers are going to add and kind of complicate that whole situation.
We'll go over to the man in the dark cave now, Brian.
Yeah, I'm in on Chris Taylor. I like him, and I really like the eligibility. I think anytime, second and short isn't necessarily always the most desired eligibility split. It's probably the most common one. But when you throw in outfield as well, it's important whenever you're in these DCs. And I really like the eligibility. And I would like him to be a bit cheaper. I admit that. But I will take him at that price here and there whenever needed. Like Vlad said, I am a bit worried about the batting average, especially as he ages. But the positives, Matt, you mentioned it. They gave him the deal. He is still a Dodger. That's still a good lineup, even if it's not quite what it was last year. We might have some missing pieces this year. But yeah, I'm in on him. I think that kind of eligibility and just the fact that he's subjected to that lineup. I don't know where he's going to hit. Like you said, he's they use him, jack of all trades. They'll use him all over the place. So I think the at-bats are going to get there pretty much no matter what. So yeah, I actually like him at the price. Not a target or anything necessarily, but I think he's appropriately priced. I'm happy with him there.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to how much they use him. And at the position eligibility is always nice. So I guess we're split on him, but hopefully everyone can get a little bit of information out of that. He's just going a little higher than usual. And I think I tend to agree that I'll probably not have many shares of him, but it's not someone I'm crossing off my list by any means. Vlad, who is your overrated hitter for the NL West?
Overrated hitter. It's tough to pick one. I think I'd mentioned to you before we recorded, just looking at if you're looking at ADP in the top 100 among just hitters in the National League West, there are only 5 guys. I mean, if you don't count Story, you don't count Chris Bryant, you assume they go somewhere else. It's literally just 5 guys. So I think most of those guys are appropriately priced. And so it was really actually tough to find someone that fits the bill here. For me, it's Jake Cronenworth. And I know I'm going to disappoint a lot of people, especially those that are in San Diego and recognize that he's awesome. I mean, there's like, what's wrong with Jake Cronenworth, right? So I have no major issues with him per se. He's a very solid major league player. And I don't know. I think it's just he's fair value. The good, of course, he's got solid plate discipline, great walk rate, below average strikeout rate or above average strikeout rate. He's only 27, so maybe possibly quite in his prime, and could even hit 25 home runs. It's absolutely possible. And most important, the most important thing about him is he's got that 3 position eligibility of flexibility, which is fantastic for no holds or no fab drafts. And right now he's projected to hit 3rd in the Padres lineup. What I'm not so sure about is if he's going to be that 3-hole hitter for the course of the season. I don't think they're done adding bats. Like I said, possibly a Rizzo. I know he wasn't drafted by them, but he played his first season with the Padres. So a little bit of a homecoming there. Maybe a Nelly Cruz when they get the DH. So, or Machado can hit 3rd. Cronenworth also doesn't run like he used to. Interesting. He only had 4 stolen bases last year on a team that led the National League in stolen bases and doesn't hit the ball particularly hard. A little bit light on the average exit velocity, the hard hit rate. So he's, that's pretty much my case. He's not a cross-off guy for me. I would consider him. But if, for example, I'm looking at him versus DJ LeMahieu, and I know they're kind of going in different paths in their career at this point, I think I might still actually click on LeMahieu.
Yeah, I've come to him. I've done a few drafts so far, and I always come to him and I look at all of his stats, and I just think I can do better than this. I think it must be just the position eligibility that keeps him afloat, which is very valuable. I think I'm guilty of undervaluing that every year, it's nice to have those guys, but I just always refuse to pay up for like an inferior player just to get a couple of extra positions. But there is that thing where if he does, they currently have I don't want to say unimpressive lineup, not as impressive as you'd think. If they don't go crazy overboard with upgrades, I could see him sticking kind of near the 3-0. That's where they had him for the most part. So he could be underrated as far as run scoring. But yeah, I'm with you. I get there. I look at the other available options, and I'm just like, okay, I can do better in this. I'm just going to move past the position eligibility and get someone that's just a little more solid for me. What do you think, George?
No, yeah, I'm right there with you guys. He's one of these guys that anytime I look at him on the board, you almost want to make the argument to like really the eligibility is why you want to take him, right? I kind of want to convince myself like, man, he's got that first, second, and short. Good pick for like a DC type of draft. But yeah, I mean, just looking at the production, I just see guys going a bit later that I would prefer. So yeah, I found myself passing over Cronenworth as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you bring anything different out of Brian. Maybe you're going to hit us with something different. Are you a fan? How do you feel about position eligibility in general? Is that a thing that you really value, especially in like the draft champions where you want as much flexibility as possible? Or how do you feel about this? And specifically Cronenworth, obviously.
Yeah, I definitely value the multi-position eligibility, and he's got just about as good as you can get. And I do value it differently. So we talked about Chris Taylor a couple of minutes ago, having second short outfield. I would put a little wee bit more premium on that than say, like I mentioned earlier, like Brendan Rodgers, second and short only or something like that. But Cronenworth, you can make the case. I mean, he's got some of the best there is. And it's funny that Vlad brought this up because this is exactly what I was thinking too. LeMahieu and Cronenworth are going about 10 spots apart or have been for most of the offseason. I would rather have LeMahieu. And usually you're left with that choice if you want it. I actually also prefer LeMahieu's eligibility out of the two. It's funny, though, because coming into the offseason, I thought I would get a lot of Cronenworth. And I guess just the price ended up being in a spot where I'm not willing to pay up. I think the hype on him, for whatever reason, there seems like there's just a lot of hype, I guess, and that's just where he's going. The dude can definitely hit. He's hitting in the middle of a lineup. There's a lot of desirables there. I would just like him maybe 2 rounds later. That's all. So I'm not like out on him or anything like that. Would definitely take him if he drops a bit. But yeah, I think there's other directions I look at that area right now.
All right, one thing I wanted to ask is where would you say he would go if he was only a shortstop or only a second baseman? That's kind of the question I ask myself. Is he like a 200 guy, 180? And I think that makes the decision.
Yeah. I mean, he's basically Jonathan Schoop with a few steals if he was just second base, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's essentially what he is. You're paying a lot for that eligibility. You really are. That's actually a great way to put it mm-hmm. for anyone trying to break down him as just a singular asset. If you're planning on drafting, because a lot of these guys you plan on drafting them, and some people look like, oh, he's available. Dalton Varsho's available at catcher and outfield. Yeah, you're going to be playing him at the outfield all the time. Like it doesn't matter sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that is Jake Cronenworth. Brian's overvalued hitter was Cody Bellinger. We already covered that, so we'll just move on to mine. This is complicated. He's my overvalued hitter. I just drafted him today in a league. It's Max
More
Muncie.
Hypocrisy.
This is not hypocrisy. This is confusion, more confusion. Because I don't know if he's going to be ready for opening day. I don't know if he's going to be out for the year. I've seen reports that suggest both. Most of them have him missing time into the season. I've seen some people suggesting that it could be the All-Star break. No one knows a thing. And of course, we're getting no updates during the freaking lockout. He fell. And I finally got sniped on my very last guy that I wanted. I can't think of his name. It was a Seattle third baseman again. I keep forgetting his name.
Oh, Toro.
Toro?
Yeah, Abraham Toro. He was my last guy I wanted for corner infield, and it was the last straw. I saw everything else that was left. It was like pick 240. And I was like, or 245-ish. And I'm like, I'm taking Muncie. I'm going to bite the bullet here. I thought about it earlier. But I mean, you could be getting nothing from him again, I took him at 245. His ADP is like, I don't know. What is it, 160 something currently? It's still pretty wild.
It's the ADP that's, I think, dropped more than anyone. I mean, this is a guy that you are now getting consistently after 200. That was basically a 150, 160 for a while.
So it's basically a guy I wanted to talk about, especially with you on Vlad. Not that you have an inside track here because there is no news. No one's getting news. But how are you treating this? Because all we got the last piece of news we have was that vague, like little interview where he said, "Oh, it's coming along slowly because I really damaged my UCL." But like, that's just him saying that. It's just a general statement, and everyone's of course jumping to all sorts of conclusions here. At one point, people thought he'd be back for the playoffs. Obviously, that didn't happen. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Max Muncie?
We did get one update. I remember if you guys saw the one picture or the one, what was it, Instagram post or somebody where he was shopping at a Costco somewhere in the Midwest. I don't know if you guys saw it. But anyways, he picked something up and it looked fine. So that's enough for me.
There you go. Yeah.
No. No, it's risky. It's
Was it a quart of milk or a gallon of milk?
I don't know. It was like a 12 pack of soda or 30.
But isn't Costco,
whatever.
Isn't Costco like a discount? Yeah, that's like a Sam's Club.
It's a bulk.
He could have been picking up 1 pound of garlic.
48 rolls of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Or 48 rolls. Just rolls.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I have one share, and it was the worst place for me to do it, and that was in the 1K draft champions that drafting right next to Phil, of course. And it was just a point where he fell to a place where, and I felt like this team had a nice solid base at the top and I could afford some risks. So at that point, I'm thinking we know nothing, but if things are good, I've got myself a smash here and I'm willing to kind of burn. This is high draft equity where he was going is like 220, but I just did it anyway. It's just one of those things. Like if I had maybe drafted 10 minutes earlier and I was feeling in a different mood, I probably wouldn't have clicked on it, but that's what ended up happening. I think for the most part, a lot of people don't have to worry about it because when they start drafting in March, we'll have an answer and then there'll be a fair price for him. But right now, it's just a matter of how risk averse or how much you like risk on whether you want to take it. But usually the smart move would be to just, hey, pick someone else.
Yeah, I currently have. Yeah, I have him right now as my corner infielder in that one league, and I'm gonna try to get some kind of boring insurance policy for him. But yeah, like I said, you look around at a certain point, you're like, all right, I'm gonna take a shot. George, what are your thoughts? Because you are very desperate in that same draft I'm talking about, and you actually ended up reaching for Tsutsugo. So you know what I'm talking about as far as bare. The shells were bare. What do you think?
Amazing. Never seen that happen yet in all the drafts I've done so far this year, where basically all the first basemen get cleared out by pick 250. It was amazing. But yeah, I mean, if Muncie had gotten back to us, I might have. I'm drafting that team with Mike Curlin, and I might have made the argument like, hey, why don't we just take a chance here on Muncie? But yeah, no shares yet. But yeah, like you said, just a lot of uncertainty there, and a lot of times I found just the best move is to go a different direction.
Brian, I know your thoughts. We talked a little bit before the show started, but you didn't really get into it because I tried to make you guess at the person that I drafted. I mean, in the circumstances, I got him near his max. I was like, maybe I was very close to it. What are your thoughts of just trying to get a share? Because I mean, honestly, anywhere you get him now in any NFBC draft of these early ones, if he turns out to be healthy, it's going to be one of the steals of the draft. So. Are you willing to go there? Because I know you're a volume guy, or do you just too much risk for you to bother?
I unfortunately, whenever this news started to seem more serious towards the beginning of the offseason, just crossed him off my board entirely. I haven't even looked his direction at all. And I was really disappointed because he actually is a guy that I don't know if I would say I would be targeting, but I was intrigued with where he was going to go just because, as we've been talking about, first base is so deep and that eligibility is really good. He got the middle and corner infield crossover. And I thought that he would maybe go at a good price because, people aren't really thinking of him. They're thinking of those top first basemen and stuff. And, the whole narrative right now of why take Jose Abreu when I can get, this whole thing that's going on. But I was really excited to take him. I thought I'd have a lot of Muncie this offseason. I don't know. It's the news seems more and more serious. I'm not going to get involved with Muncie.
I understand that, but yeah, I don't know. I thought I was you a couple of hours ago, and then And then I gave in. I gave in to looking around at the bare bones surrounding my team and decided to reach for the pot of gold. I went for door number 2. I don't know what's behind it, but it could be something special. That's done for hitting right now. We're going to switch over to pitching, and hopefully we'll pick up the pace a little bit as we always run long on these freaking shows because it's fun to talk to these guests. George, we're going to hop over to pitching. Who's your undervalued pitcher for the NL West?
So the pitchers were kind of difficult for me to select here with the NL West, but the guy I settled on was Alex Wood. Alex Wood I think now he's going around 230, 225, somewhere like that. But I mean, we kind of know the story with Alex Wood. We can't really expect more than maybe 150 innings, but they're going to be 150 pretty quality innings. And, it wasn't all that different last year with the Giants. We know the Giants organization at this point that we know has a track record of getting the most out of their pitchers. And, he might have even underperformed a bit. He ended up with a 3.83 ERA, but 3.48 FIP, 3.44 XFIP. Skills are all, pretty solid. 50% ground ball rate. Has always had good control, 6.7% walk rate, 12.5% swinging strike rate. So, we can expect about a strikeout per inning. He did start the season a few weeks late because he had a back issue that flared up in spring training. Then missed another 3 to 4 weeks late in the season with COVID, and ended up with 138 innings. But, he's someone that the Giants at this point, you look at their rotation, that's someone that, they're probably going to have to lean on a bit. So yeah, I think you can expect maybe 150 innings of quality ratios and some strikeouts. And I just, we get the innings concern with Wood, but, there's guys going much earlier, like Pablo Lopez, 100 picks earlier. They're not a whole lot different. And Lopez, I think his max, the most innings he's pitched, 111 or something like that. So, I don't, guys like Michael Kopech, Tanner Houck, Shane Baz, a lot of guys that I like, but, going much earlier than Alex Wood. And you can get Alex Wood as your SP4, SP5. I think he's a bit undervalued here.
He definitely looked a lot more like his early career, early Dodger days, Alex Wood, as far as his strikeout rate jumping up to where it was. He has K- walk of about 19%, which is nice. Vlad, what do you think of Alex Wood? We know about the limited innings, but he is going a little later. How do you feel about drafting and piling up those guys? You're only getting a limited amount of innings for, or anyone that has any kind of an injury history. But the Giants obviously work a lot of magic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the cheat codes in fantasy. When in doubt, you draft the Giants pitcher. I mean, it's just basically NL West. If you're in a tiebreaker and you're looking at an NL West pitcher that isn't a Rocky and someone else, usually go for the NL West pitcher. The ballpark is fantastic. Wood is just solid. Always has been solid. Big ground ball guy. The only time you saw the kind of the fly ball rate rise was when he was hurt, and in those sort of partial seasons. Besides that, incredibly consistent. Does not give up a lot of home runs. And solid. You're gonna probably get a lot of good quality starts out of him, and probably even help the ERA in a day where it's many years ago we used to be snobs with our ERA guys. I remember I'd be like, I'm not going to draft anyone who I project over a 4 ERA. Well, those times have changed. You're going to get some of those guys. The chances that Wood is on the right side of that yet again, as he has been for almost every season except for those 2 partial hurt ones, is really high. So absolutely. And that's a really good point you had made about the difference between him and Pablo Lopez, who is also a really solid pitcher, but 100 pick difference doesn't really compute, doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So Alex Wood, I'm on board with that. Nice and underrated.
Yeah. I mean, anyone wondering about the actual level of performance, his O swing up on his sliders up to 44.3% over the last couple of years. Before that, it was down 27, 34. So you're back up until where he was again, like I said, in a 2016, 2017, when he was kind of at the top of his game. That's when his slider was at 42.5. So that's kind of where, or 2017 and 2018. So his slider is, even though he throws mostly sinker ballers, he has that really kind of dominant base swing and miss pitch for a secondary. So if he's pitching, he's gonna look good. Brian, any different opinion on Alex Wood?
Not a lot. No, I agree. I think it's another syndrome of just kind of boringish. I was gonna say old guy because I don't know about you guys, but he does feel old to me. He just turned 31, so he's really not even that high up there at all. I don't know if it's like the crafty lefty thing or what, but yeah, the Giants invested in him. He is a Giant. Yeah, I like it where he's going. Like George said, you're not going to get like crazy innings out of him necessarily, but I think the ratios are really good. And, at this point, it's not like you're getting 180 innings of these kind of metrics out of many pitchers. So, yeah, I think it's a good value where Alex Wood's going.
All right, and that was Alex Wood. Moving on to Vlad's undervalued pitcher for the NL West. Who's your guy?
I'm going to roll with Mr. Yu Darvish. And again, he's in that, at least ADP wise on NFBC, in that same range with his teammate Blake Snell and with another underrated guy I mentioned earlier, the hitter Cody Bellinger. But to me, the market price drop just feels a little bit too severe, especially for a guy that was essentially a borderline first rounder, going 14, 16 overall. And obviously a lot of people that were burned by that may be afraid to go back. So I think I imagine we start to see people or his ADP rise a little bit when they remember kind of who Darvish is and what he's been doing over the course of his career. One of only 6 starting pitchers since the beginning of 2019 with a strikeout rate over 30%. Over that same span, there are only 4 guys with whips that are better whips than him. It's Verlander, Cole, Buehler, and Scherzer. Great control in every full season he's pitched. He's posted a walk rate under 8%. And he was cruising before the All-Star break last year. He had a 2.5 ERA, a whip under 1, and then he was just crushed in the second half. Obviously, the sticky stuff really affected him, and that's, I think, the biggest concern with people is that you take that away from him and he's just crap. I don't know if that's quite fully the case because he was hurt. He was dealing with back stiffness. He left to start early right before the All-Star break and had a hip issue as well. And so, to me, it just feels like one of those guys that I think, you get a healthy season out of him, you're going to get 200 plus strikeouts. So same thing, my thinking with Bellinger, you're not talking about a guy going like 50th overall where you have to really think about it. But if he beats out the guys like have never done it before in the range above, 5 rounds ahead of him, Alcantara is fantastic. Everybody loves him. Nobody has a problem taking him in the 3rd round, but Darvish is a risk in the 7th. It doesn't really make sense to me, at least. So that's why many of the reasons why I like Darvish.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will regret not having more shares of him. I don't have any yet. He happens to fall in an awkward spot in the draft. You have the aces up top, and then you have the secondary aces that have question marks, Giolito and Nola. And then you have that weird tier of like Lynn, Rogers, Montas, Cease, the kind of the trendier guys in that area. And then and then you have Darvish just kind of like sitting around in there. And I don't know if it is because there was a lot of people like Dave McDonald, who's afraid of everyone who ever had a paper cut, who have this injury history in their mind of Darvish they can't shake. And then there was the people that think like, oh, he can't pitch without the sticky substance, which they're going to have a fully tacked ball that's approved by Major League Baseball. That'll be back. And everyone has all these ideas I think they build up in their head, and it just turned them into this monster, and they just never took a second look. So I talked to so many people like that I think just they had that stigma, and they just never bothered to go research it or look deeper into it. So it's good that you bring him up. Brian, what do you think of Yu Darvish? I saw you nodding in agreement while Vlad was talking.
This is a crazy one. Like I am with Vlad overall. It's so weird. Like I have different opinions here because I do feel like there's some risk with Darvish just simply because of the age also. I mean, he is 35, so let's remember that too. But Vlad's totally right. I mean, the skill level that this guy has had for the last few years, for a while now, has been insane. Like very high strikeout rate. I was fortunate enough to have him everywhere during the COVID shortened season. And then I was out on him last year, just kind of playing the, how much does the guy cost game basically. But yeah, I mean, obviously you can look at this ADP of 94 going in the 7th round and think that you're definitely going to get value out of it. I mean, there's so many names in front of him that you could see him out producing. I would say the whole way up to, sorry to say this to you, Matt, but Max Fried, Logan Webb. Sorry to say that to you, George. But yeah, I could see Yu Darvish outperforming all those guys. Like, no doubt about it. I could see it, no doubt about it. But, I'm also a little concerned with the health. I will say, didn't even know he was going 94. I am surprised by that. So yeah, I do agree with Vlad. I think as a net answer here, I think he's being underdrafted. Yeah.
All right, so let's try to move this thing along a little bit. We'll kind of move on to the next guy. What I am trying to see. Oh, I guess undervalued. That's the last one is me. My undervalued pitcher here is. Oh no, we didn't do Brian yet.
You skipped
Brian.
me. I'll go
Brian,
quick though.
You go first, of course. Who is your undervalued pitcher for the NL West?
I half reluctantly. You know what? I actually feel a little bit like this with Darvish too, but Zack Allen from the D-backs, obviously. And I think a lot of people might feel this way. I have some nervousness, obviously, because of the injuries that he sustained last year. But obviously they were, the first one was obviously fluky. I was so pissed during spring training, the batting incident where the pressure in his forearm after he's doing bunting drills or whatever. And because he was like, I don't know about you guys, but he was like target number one practically for me last year, just with where he was going, the pitch mix, the health history. I was so in on Gallen. I was so disappointed when that happened. And then he actually started to have struggles in season. It actually did have, I think, he actually had a legitimate elbow issue then afterwards. So that does still worry me a bit. But for where he is going right now,
I do think it was more of a bone thing. I think it was like compensating for the other injury, and so it wasn't like a natural regular pitching injury. I think it was not that you ever want a elbow injury; they're all bad. But right. I think if there's ever such a thing as a not as bad elbow injury, I think that Zack Allen does have it.
Yeah, going recently 133 overall, which puts him in round 9. I mean, I think there's definitely profit potential with Gallen. Again, you love the pitch mix. I love the ballpark. Obviously, the team is atrocious, but give me Zack Allen. I think that's definitely a good underdrafted guy in this division.
What do you think, George? I think everyone loves everyone. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Zack Allen. Either you're in or out, but everyone seems interested and buys into how good he can be. It's just a matter of if you believe.
Yeah, I'm right there too, and really just kind of the same concerns with the injury. Haven't landed on him yet, but I can definitely see it.
How about you? What do you think, Vlad?
I was just going to say I don't think it's an accident that the guy posted a ERA in 2 partial seasons. His first 27 starts in the majors under 3 by accident. Obviously, I think injuries came into play last year, and also some bad luck, some really bad defense behind him with the way the Arizona guys played. Brian, you posted some UZR thing today. I thought that was pretty funny, including that in the.
We got to add UZR. I mean, is that not a good roto category? UZR? I think we can all start getting prepared for defense, right?
Yeah, I mean, arguably the worst defensive metric on top of it.
I was going to respond with the what's that like that? How about no? But I decided not to. We were going to see each other.
There are plenty of people. I mean, I know you're trolling people, but there's plenty of people that legitimately want to add defense. They really do.
Hey, if you want to replicate the game of baseball, this is a whole episode, guys. So, we're going to, as soon as this series is over, Matt, that's what we're going to approach, I think. How about that?
We're not doing that even. I guess that does it for Zack Allen. I think is anyone just not on board at all? Is there anyone that's on board with him returning, but still reluctant to get shares? Or is this a thing where you just want to not miss out, so you'll grab one share? How does everyone feel overall? Just confidence? Where's the confidence levels on a 0 to 10? Vlad, 0 to 10 confidence.
It's a 5. The longest I've been on the clock at all this whole season was between him and Shane Baz for an hour. And I don't know. I just went down these rabbit holes. I just couldn't decide at the end of it. I'm like, I'm just going to pick one of them. I picked Baz, I think, and then instantly regretted it. And then got Gallen in the next draft to make up for it. I mean, that's not the way to do it, but
All right, moving on. My undervalued pitcher for the NL West is Joe Musgrove. And this is just a matter of he's in this giant group of pitchers like Fried, I said, and I'm trying to think of all of them, and Lynn
Rogers.
and Cease and Trevor Rogers and Frankie Montas. And there's just this massive group, and he's at the very end of it. And I mean, I don't know what it is. He had some early injury issues in his career. He got up to practically 200 strikeouts. He's going to get the innings to do that again. He withered a little bit down the stretch. People were worried about his spin rate with the sticky stuff. That wasn't an issue at all. His spin rate stayed consistent for the entire season. you can't dismiss the early season or early career injury concerns. They can always crop up. I know there's no such thing as, injury prone. We have all these people in the industries that'll tell you that, they'll yell at you. But I do think the greatest indicator of future injury is past injury. So I don't think you can erase any kind of risk there. But for where he's going, there's not too many people that can throw 200 plus strikeouts, and he's one of the guys you can get the latest that can still give you a near one whip. So yeah, I love Joe Musgrove. And I already have a few shares. I've set the min, I think, twice on him, especially in those drafts where they're pushing up pitchers. I'm glad to grab him. George, what do you think of Mr. Musgrove?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big Joe Musgrove fan. We kind of saw, while he was in Pittsburgh, the big thing was he's got to get that pitch mix changed, right? Like he's got to go to those secondaries a little more. And he did just that. We saw what happened, in the first half. I kind of questioned whether, maybe was it fatigue that, was the reason why he tailed off in the second half. He had only thrown 39 innings in 2020. So, yeah, he's one of those guys that, I'm definitely going to want to get a share of there where he's going. And like you said, the range with all those guys, if you pass on pitchers early, like in the first 2-3 rounds, I'm looking to, get 2 or 3 of these guys. And so I'm definitely going to find myself with a share or 2 of Musgrove.
He also, I think he's someone who I think has another gear, because he's very complicated. He throws 6 pitches. I don't know if it's because he's on the same team as Yu Darvish. He throws this cut fastball that's like kind of sucks. Just don't throw it anymore. Because of course Joe Musgrove's listening right now. Don't throw the cutter anymore. It's just a bad pitch. You don't need it. You don't need 6. Narrow that stuff down. Make it simpler. You don't need to fool the hitters with 6 pitches. Brian, your thoughts on Musgrove?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. I mean, yeah, that is a really intriguing second wave, I guess you would say, of like secondary aces. I know you were calling like Aaron Nola, Giolito as kind of like the questionable, like the first tier of aces, but the questionable ones. But these guys are kind of like the number 2 starters when it comes to fantasy. You know what I mean? And it's an interesting tier. Like you said, him, Trevor Rogers are 2 guys that I really think about in this tier. But yeah, I think there could be, Musgrove has got the stuff and the skill. Obviously, we saw the no-hitter against, it was the Rangers, but he's got the skill to be a top pitcher in this league and have stretches that are just unbelievably ridiculous. So yeah, I think where he's going is pretty good. And I think for anybody that's wanting to approach a draft with not taking pitching super early and getting a couple guys from this tier, he'd be one of the guys I would choose. So yeah, I am with you.
All right, Vlad, Joe Musgrove, your thoughts before we move on to our overvalued pitchers.
Same thing that all of you guys said, and I don't really know of anybody that is like an anti-Musgrove person, because you guys remember last season the crazy helium on him.
It's kind of why it shocks me where he's going, right?
Yeah, and he shot up into the top 100, and he did nothing wrong. In fact, he was fantastic last year, and so he's just one of those guys you kind of hope, you're like, I really hope people don't talk him up. They don't draft him. There's always somebody that grabs him before me, and so I'm in. I'm just in on that rotation at the price tags for most of these guys.
I will say I'm in now. I like Montas. I like Rogers. I like a lot of the guys in that tier. He happens to be going the latest. If that changes as the season gets closer, I might switch it up. I like Montas. He just happens to get taken a little earlier. So, I mean, we'll see where that goes. So that is Joe Musgrove. Now heading over into overvalued pitchers. To you, George, who is your most overvalued pitcher right now in the NL West?
So again, I had a really hard time kind of settling with an overvalued guy in the NL West. Yes, originally I had Camilo Doval, and I think someone else might have him here, so we'll get to him anyways. But I ended up with Julio Yurius, and I think that, I mean, it's not that I don't like Urius. I for me, it's just where he's going relative to a lot of other guys. I think he overperformed a bit last year. He's coming off a career year. I think, good control. I think he limits hard contact. I think the ratios are pretty safe. For me, it's the strikeouts. And when I'm looking at these guys that I'm taking like as an ace, You kind of want somebody who you can bank on, over a 9K per 9. And just looking at the swing and miss stuff, I'm just not sure that it's there to repeat that. 11.2% swinging strike rate, but he had, 26% strikeout rate. I mean, I could definitely see that coming down. It did come down in the second half, which was kind of weird because he had his second half was incredible. Yet the underlying skills kind of took a little bit of a dip, at least when you look at K minus walk rate. So yeah, I mean, as far as the workload concerns, I think he's kind of put that behind him a bit, but I think, 185 innings, I think it might come with 175 strikeouts. I don't think, I'm just not sure there's that next step to make him, because I've seen him go at the 2-3 turn, and I'm just not sure that there's that extra level for him. Not sure that he repeats, 20 wins. How repeatable is that going to be? So yeah, I think he's just a little overvalued. I kind of prefer the guys going, in that range a little behind him, like Giolito, Nola. I'm a big Alcantara guy. So yeah.
I really like Urias. I think he has an underrated floor. So I can understand what you were kind of saying, that he doesn't give you the kind of the strikeouts that you're hoping for other people. And that's true. He did have 195. I think he has a really sharp arsenal. I mean, he has, he goes to his four seam, his curveball. The changeup is actually, very good. And I think that he's just very good at throwing pitchers off, or getting hitters off balance. Even from the strikeouts, the changeup was working for him earlier in the year. He that kind of went away a little bit towards the end of the year, and then he started using just his four seam and curveball to put guys away. So, I mean, I like him. I think that he is very stable. I think that there are, like we said, Nola, he had that weird home run problem no one can figure out. It was all bad location. Giolito has his issues sometimes. People are happy to take them with their flaws. Walker Buehler, there's concerns there from some people as far as, how he'll do long-term. Max Scherzer's getting older. I'm just saying that everyone seems to have these flaws, and I don't really find one with Urias. And I feel like that is value to me, where I'm taking him and I feel like he's one of the few pitchers I can take where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm getting. Like Burns. I mean, he threw a lot of innings, who knows of how he'll respond to that. I'm not unconfident of any of these other aces I'm talking about. But I'm I think the most confident in what I'm getting from Julio. So that's why I like him. So I kind of agree with you, but I still am very happy to take him. What do you think, Vlad?
I'm very comfortable with him and pretty much where he goes. For many of the reasons that you mentioned, I still think there's another gear to his game, and for me, somebody that does once in a while during the season take a chance on those two-step pitchers that ends up crushing you. He really helps balance that out, because I really think he's a warrior on the mound. He's really crafty, and he's still a kid, right? He's only 25 years old, lefty, amazing stuff. And I mean, what the decline that we saw a little bit in the underneath stuff in the second half was to me would be almost expected for a guy that has never pitched more than 100 innings in ever basically in his life. And then he threw 185. So some of that was expected, yet, the lowest hard hit rate against in baseball, one of the lowest walk rates, just so much to like about him. He just feels like kind of a safe guy in a range where almost everybody has their warts pretty much.
And Brian, what do you think of Urias? He just seems like, weak contact plus devastating curveball. I just like it. I don't know what it is. I'm in love with Urias. I'm going to try to get as many shares as I can.
I'll be in the minority here. It's not that I dislike him necessarily, but I am not really. There's nothing about him really that would make me take him over a couple arms that are going behind him, just confidently right in the middle of the second round there.
Can you name him?
Because, Aaron Nola. Number one.
Really?
No doubt about it. Because there's too many guys that I feel like are, I don't want to say surefire bets because we don't really have that anymore, but I think a more sure bet to get towards 200 innings than Urias would. And I really would like to have that up in this range. Beyond Aaron Nola, I'll be honest, it's not like there's that many. And I'm not saying that I would knock Urias that far back. I would just be more interested in him in the middle of the third round. But yeah, I like Aaron Nola up there. I would still be tempted to take Giolito over him, obviously. Not obviously, but honestly. But then there's like some question marks for me. So then you got Robbie Ray, Freddie Peralta, and stuff like that. I would more want to put Urias back around that range. I'm more comfortable with those two guys with more experiences and more, proof of innings under their belt than Urias has done so far. So,
all right. Before we move on real quick, George, since this was your guy, where would you have him ranked as far as where would you feel comfortable? Is it just the not feel comfortable taking him at all, or is it just a matter of you like so many other pitchers, or it's just not what you're looking for that early?
Right. No, it's not that I dislike him or I wouldn't take him. I think maybe at the back end of the third would be a little more appropriate. Like, you like Max Fried. I love Max Fried. I'm not so sure what makes Julio Yurius a whole lot different than Max Fried. And maybe that's a bit more about Max Fried being undervalued. But yeah, I think I would move Yurius back a few spots. But yeah, not that I don't like him. There's a few other guys that I like a bit more.
Okay. Moving over to Vlad, you're under your overvalued pitcher for the NL West.
For me,
spoiler alert. I'm sorry, I put it up.
Oh yeah. Well, yes, there he is, Mr. Camilo Doval. No real issue, obviously, with the pitcher himself. He looks like a bona fide stud, a future closer. The question really is the future now? I think what we saw down the stretch in the playoffs was amazing. The manager Gabe Kepler did call on him to close out games, 17 consecutive innings without allowing a run. He's amazing. Crazy 100-mile-per-hour slider, or wicked slider, and 100-mile-an-hour flat fastball, even better than that. And for me, it was like if you can just draft like a team closer, almost like a team kicker, San Francisco would be one of your top options. But we don't have that luxury, unfortunately, and so you're almost playing that game of like we don't even know what's going to happen there. Obviously, I think the misconception with Gabe Kepler is that like, oh, we can't trust him to really just be in on one guy. But he was, if you look at last year in the game logs, and if you recall down the stretch, it was basically McGee. McGee was his ninth inning guy, and then it switched over to just Doval. We just don't know what's going to happen this year when those switches are going to happen. And nobody ever said, I don't think outside of seeing him as the closer and roster resource, no one ever said, oh, he's going to be the closer. Just because we saw in the playoffs doesn't mean that's what's going to happen next year. Or this season. So yeah, I don't know. I just, the fact that Jake McGee is so good, Tyler Rogers is phenomenal, and those guys are there. I just can't pay the price tag on him. It's the same reason why, I'm dropping down on like a Blake Trinan, for example. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to re-sign Kenley Jansen, so I can't pay that price tag for Trinan right now. And that's kind of how I feel about Doval. He could be excellent. He could be the best closer in baseball for all we know. But those are the type of risks I'm not willing to take.
Yeah, I mean, plus down the stretch when Camilo Doval was the closer, McGee was injured, I believe, and that's why they went to him to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. They may not have ever gone that way if McGee wasn't hurt. If I wasn't mistaken, there was a $1,000 draft already where someone took McGee. I don't know if either of you guys were in this draft. McGee went something like the 5th or 6th round, something crazy. Someone and Doval ended up going later. So someone really believes it's just going to be McGee. Again, isolated incident.
Was it Jake McGee?
Jake McGee. I'm Jake McGee Sr. George, what do you think of your boy Doval? You got to be a fan here, but you said you hinted earlier that this was going to be your overvalued guy as well.
Yeah, pretty much. You guys are spot on. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved watching Camilo Doval do his thing in the playoffs, but it's funny. I mean, the Giants are in recent years been compared to the Rays, the way they operate. And it's funny, after 2020, we saw, Pete Fairbanks got 3 postseason saves. What happened there? But yeah, like Vlad mentioned, Gabe Kepler, I think, he's had this reputation of mixing and matching, but no, I mean, since he arrived to San Francisco, he's openly stated that he wants to go to one guy. And, last year it was McGee, and, McGee had his hiccups here and there. At the end of April, he blew a save. It was in Miami. He blew a save, and it turned out like he was feeling under the weather from COVID vaccine related symptoms. And that's when you saw kind of Tyler Rogers pick it up. And then McGee at the end of September, middle of September, he got an oblique strain. He actually didn't pitch again in the regular season. And the Giants said that they were going to ease him back in, just kind of in lower leverage situations. And Doval was on fire, right? So they kind of just let him do his thing. Yeah, I mean, I can't pay this price. I don't see. I mean, McGee is, going into the final year there in his contract. He's the veteran. Duvall has 20 good, counting the postseason, 20 good MLB innings. I just can't pay the price there.
Who would everyone here rather have, Duvall or Barlow? Scott Barlow today.
I guess Scott Barlow.
He's disgusted at both.
That's messy too, because anything can happen there as well. I mean, Scarborough is phenomenal, but he can also be he had that role towards the end of the year. But remember, Josh Stalmont was the man there for a while, and I know he walks a little too many guys. They got Dylan Coleman. I mean, there are a lot of possibilities there. It's just a mess. Like closers right now is a mess. We'll have so much more clarity. And then even something crazy will happen. Like last year, you recall, everybody was all on the Emilio Pagan train. We were sure he was the closer, and then whoop, there's Melanson, and then
that was a surprise. Actually, that was a surprise. One more. Who would everyone rather have, Duvall or Knable?
Knable.
Yeah, I think.
Right? Too. I mean, that would be an easy one for me, but ADP wise, right now, that's still up for. I've seen Duvall going in front of him consistently. So. All right, moving on. We're gonna we're still running pretty late here. We'll get through these last couple. Brian, your overrated pitcher. I don't think even from Vlad. I don't think you'll get an argument on this one.
Yeah, it's not like he's going, I guess, super high, but I'm just going to say Clayton Kershaw because I would not draft Clayton Kershaw this year. He's going 190, so it's not like there's helium here or anything. But I mean, yeah, I hate to say it because I absolutely love Clayton Kershaw. As much as he killed the Cardinals. No, we kind of killed him too in the playoffs, actually, but multiple times. But I just there's no way I could draft him whatsoever. So I don't think he should be on anybody's draft board. There's just too many question marks with the injuries and the age. It sucks, and I don't want to see his career come to an end like sooner. Not that saying it is right now or that it's imminent, but he's just not a guy that I think anybody should be drafting. And going 190, there's just, man, I could just sit here and name off like tons of valuable arms. Alex Wood, a guy we talked about, like they're going way after him. Desclafani, Jordan Montgomery, Alex Cobb, the whole Giants rotation. But yeah, there's just way too many good arms that are going behind him. And would not be taking Clayton Kershaw.
Well, I don't really mind the age. He was like, when he pitched, he was dominant. I mean, he was one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball. He at the end of the year was hinted at that he might need Tommy John surgery. I have not heard otherwise. He could pitch in spring training and boom, be hurt. So yeah, for me, I am crossing him off my list just because the last news I heard wasn't anything good. So I'm just going another direction. But I guess if he's going late enough, I don't know. I'm probably just crossing him off my list. Vlad, do you feel that way? Because I know you have obviously a very warm spot in your heart for Clayton Kershaw, watching him dominate year after year. But yeah, the last news we had on him certainly wasn't encouraging, and the Dodgers didn't do anything to bring him back quickly.
I mean, I usually have that warm spot in my heart till the playoffs start, and then you kind of know what's going to happen, unfortunately. But hey, we won one. It does count, even though it was a shortened season. But I don't know. I don't have any Kershaw yet, only because it's draft champion season. And by this point, I've taken enough risks that I usually don't need to take another one. I would revisit. He's somebody I would consider in online championships, for example, in the 12 teamers, just because there could be some upside there, and it's okay at that point. I don't actually mind dropping. I'm not going to hold on to my whatever that would be 15, 16 round pick and I'm not going to feel bad about it. So I'm fine with taking a risk there. Main event season, I would want to hear some really positive news, but right now, draft champion season, there's really no reason for me to go there.
Justin Mason's in the comment section just telling me I'm on the clock at our league. Like, I'm going to stop the show to go make my pick. I'll be with you guys momentarily. Let's move on to the last one here. For me, my overvalued pitcher, this will be something of interest for George. Mine is Logan Webb. And this has to do with a conversation I had with actually John Legeza. I was trying to tell him how much I love Sean Manaea and that you're only injury prone until you're not. He went through an entire season, not to say that I'm not, like I said, I'm not worried. He could certainly come back, but he pitched a whole healthy season and he looked dominant, and he's been healthy for a couple of years now, including the short season. His velocity was up. I really liked him. And I was saying, why does everyone still have a stigma in having Sean Manaea go late, yet Logan Webb is going this early, having missed good chunk of time with a shoulder injury this season. So I don't have a problem with Logan Webb. I think he's great. I mean, he was freaking devastating in the playoffs too. So I'm not questioning the talent if he's healthy. The whole thing is like, why is he being taken so early with no question marks when he literally had a shoulder injury like last year? So that's the only question. There's so many pitchers I like in that area that I'm just not taking him. I'll let him dominate on someone else's squad. So I'm there's many reasons. It's as good a reason as any, I think, to just cross and narrow down players. But what do you think, George? Because people love Logan Webb, and understandably, but no one brings up that he missed like a pretty significant amount of time with a shoulder injury. That just boggles my mind.
No, it is an absolutely fair point. We saw him, he missed a bit of time with the shoulder and came back and was basically dominant from that point on. But yeah, I mean, I will admit, like, it's hard to shake that team bias, that Giants bias, the NL West bias. But you absolutely make a fair point. I mean, the skills look absolutely fantastic. He can sustain that. I would like to see him put up a bit more of a track record as well, and maybe he should be going a round or two later. I mean, I kind of think about it like, guys like Trevor Rogers. I love Trevor Rogers, and if Trevor Rogers hadn't missed that time dealing with the personal, unfortunate personal family issue, he would probably be going where Logan Webb is going too. So I think it's just, might be a bit of that playoff bias, but I absolutely see your point.
Are you buying him? I mean, you see his dominance up front, so you can be clouded a little bit, or just like be more in and have more information. Are you taking him at price or cost?
I have taken him. Yeah, I'm not like actively targeting him, but yeah, in places where I am doing that. I am skipping starting pitcher in the first couple rounds. Yeah, I have taken him and then backed him up with two, 3 guys going in the next few rounds.
Okay, I'll get your guys' takes on Logan Webb, and then we'll go rapid fire for our late rounds, just real quick to end the show. Vlad, what do you think on Logan Webb? Are you happy buying him at cost?
I can't poke a hole in this guy. He's legit, man. There's just really something about him that is just incredible. He wasn't a huge pedigree. I think it was like, 4th round guy, like mid-range prospect. And you look at even his minor league numbers, he just always found a way to overperform. Just one of those guys that I think just mentally, he just gets it. He's in a perfect team context, and it's great. He's one of those picks that, sometimes you play that game of, I don't want to pay for one season, but if you believe in that, if you believe your eyes and the numbers, then that is the price. And it's just a matter of, are you willing to pay that price or not? And a lot of it has to do with also roster construction, like where we are at that point in the draft. Some people that have a couple pitchers early aren't even going to think about Logan Webb. For other people, they might have started with 3 hitters, and then you have to think about, is Logan Webb going to be my SP1 now? And thinking about him versus Musgrove, Dylan Cease will probably be a 2nd rounder by the time we get to March. So yeah, nothing bad to say about Logan Webb. I have a share, and I don't know. We'll see what happens in March.
For the record, I want to reiterate, I thought I said it earlier, I do not doubt Logan Webb's ability. He's healthy. I expect him to be amazing. It's just like the jumping from 54 innings to 148, missing time with the shoulder thing. It's just, I don't know. There's so many good, and this is also a thing. There's a lot of really good pitchers going around him that I can just kind of coin flip him out of certain arguments. What do you think, Brian? Is this a 3-on-1? Are you completely on the Webb train as well?
I'm not in on the Webb train. No. I think like we've been talking about this tier a lot tonight, like this interesting second wave of pitchers here. I think Logan Webb shouldn't fall too far, but I think he belongs on the back end of it. I mean, I'm going to get flamed for this one. I would probably rather have Luis Castillo than Logan Webb, because
I don't even agree with that.
Okay.
Justin Mason can get you.
I want to have more innings if I'm going to take a guy that far up. And I like you just said, Matt, I mean, I'm a little worried about how many innings I'm going to get out of him. And I agree with you too. As far as his skill set and his future and being on the Giants, I'm all in. I think he's going to be terrific. I'm just a little worried going into this year that, we're buying at the top of the market. and the helium. And we've talked about some amazing pitchers tonight with great skills too, like Musgrove. I like Jose Barrios. You just mentioned Dylan Cease, Trevor Rogers, of course. I'm not interested in taking Webb over those guys. And then Vlad mentioned Yu Darvish earlier, going the Hoy back at 94. I mean, he could definitely have a better season than Logan Webb. So, again, I don't doubt the guy's future or anything like that. But as far as this year and wanting a little bit more assurance with innings, I'd want to push him back. And you know what? I'd also, just to show you that I'm not biased against just Logan Webb here, I'd probably bump Jack Flaherty down out of that tier as well back at the end of it. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of where he's going.
All right, so the audience, so everyone knows Brian hates Logan Webb, not me. Send your email his way. All right, so at the end of the show, we each have a favorite late round target. We're running late, so we're not going to go round table. Actually, 3 of us has the same guy, so this should be really quick. Vlad, you can lead the charge here. Who is me, you, and George, our favorite late round value?
We should say it at the same time.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Connor
Joe.
What are the odds of that?
We basically saw the same thing, but Vlad, if you want to sum it up real quick.
Yeah, he just goes really cheap. I feel like he is somebody that is a little bit of a late bloomer, but he's just a clutch hitter. He's somebody that's going to be in that lineup every day. They're going to somehow find a way not to play Sam Hilliard. I'm sure Garrett Hampson will sit a bunch. Connor Joe will be in that lineup so long as he's healthy. I think he's got a little bit of pop. He could lead off. Great plate discipline. Strikes out a bit too much, but whether he's lead off or he's hitting 5th or whatever is in the lineup, he's going to be in there. I think I saw enough for him last year that I'm in on that for the price so that I can stream him at home or when he's on a hot streak.
Yeah, I love Connor Joe. I mean, he can play in left, first, DH. They can move him all around depending on where they need to in Colorado. George, anything to add on Connor Joe?
No, you guys pretty much hit on it, and I do think that he's going to end up getting first base eligibility at some point, so that's going to come in handy.
All right, and for the last one, he went out on a limb by himself. Brian, who is your favorite late round target in the National League West?
This is another volume play and maybe a boring
real
one.
Quick, why do you hate Connor Joe?
I don't know. That was Logan Webb. I'm intrigued by Connor Joe. If he's in the lineup as much as you guys think he's going to be a great value, but no, I'm going back to the well with the D-backs pitchers, and I'm going to go to Merrill Kelly. Actually, this is another volume play, and we're going late round. He's going 452 over the last 3 weeks in an FBC draft champions. It's a volume play for me. I mean, I think he comes out and throws a lot of innings again. He did that last year, had a little bit of a shoulder issue, although I don't believe it was anything really that major towards the end of the year. Actually, I think every single Diamondback pitcher had a shoulder issue down the stretch, other than like Zack Allen. But yeah, Merrill Kelly, the volume's going to be there. I think we're going to see a lot of innings, probably more innings out of him than Logan Webb. And for him to be going 450, I mean, look at we've got Roansy Contreras going ahead of him. We've got Reed Detmers going ahead of him. Rich Hill.
I like Roansy Contreras for the record.
These are hot names. I know these are, I get that, but I mean, like for those guys to all be going in front of him for the amount of innings he's going to go, I think being at a good pitcher's park. Hey, I'm a volume guy and I want to get that kind of production. So yeah, boring, not necessarily good, I don't think, but I think he gets there for going at 450.
I actually like his teammate Luke Weaver a little more. Go ahead, Vlad.
I was just going to say, and the thing is, you're not drafting him in a place where you have to start him every week. You can spot start him and we can pick out the right spots for him.
Yep. That's a good one. So sorry for keeping everyone a little late as it tends to go, but I love the show. Thank you for joining us, Vlad and George. Not that you really have to tell everyone; they already kind of know who you are. But in your own words, Vlad, take us out. Let everyone know where they can find you and what you're working on over FTN, because you have all sorts of great new projects you're working on. You're on a podcast. You do all sorts of cool stuff now. Yeah,
Vlad Sedler at RotoGut on Twitter, FTN. Fantasy.com, and just a lot of fun doing the preseason content thing right now. I've got my my VDP, Vlad's draft position rankings that I'm constantly tweaking after we get off the show. I got to do the last 10 rounds there, kind of mix them up a little bit, maybe move Merrill Kelly into my top 300 after what Brian was saying. But podcast with Matty Wood, Matthew Davis, everybody knows, and just having a lot of fun. Ready for them to get this whole thing situated so we can play ball.
And George, Roto Nino, tell everyone where they can find all your work. I know you're working on a new project with Sleepy K, Mike Carland as well. Tell them where they can find you and where they can see your work.
Yes, you can find me over on Twitter at Roto_Nino. And yeah, I mean, I'm over at NBC Sports Edge, where I can't wait to kick off the season there. We contributed with the bullpen reports there for the magazine that'll be out next month. So can't wait for that. And man, I need this season to start because I'm just entering in way too many drafts. So I need some baseball games to get going here. So hopefully we get some good news. But yeah, the project over with Mike Curlin it's skplaybook.com, and I just kind of drop an article here and there that what I want to write when I want to write it. So we got a Discord server over there that we have fun in the chat. So yeah, check that out.
And to talk people down from everyone freaking out. There was someone who was going on and on about, I can't do this. I need the season to start right now. I'm like, you do know that like the spring training's at minimum like a few weeks away, like regular scheduled starting time. People are like spending time in their head. No one knows what day of the week it is. But I'm optimistic. Brian, you can tell everyone where they can find you, and we'll wrap this up.
Yep, just as the handle is right there at Brian J. Seymour, just kind of share some thought-provoking videos and things like that on the Twitter feed. And also, proud that Zach Waxman has allowed me to do the Fantasy Baseball Bite segment on the Draft Champions podcast. That's something that we have going on weekly. I take those very seriously. And, if you check those out, you're going to get some information that you cannot quite find anywhere else, I'm happy to say, in the fantasy baseball world. So check those out with Zach on the Draft Champions podcast as well, after you listen to Turn 2.
Information you can't quite understand either.
Well, hey, that's up to the listener.
All right. Everyone, you find me on Twitter, MATTWI77IMS. My DMs are always open. I love to talk baseball. So yeah, reach out to me if you have any questions about learning how to break down a player, anything you want to know about advanced analytics. I'm always happy to help. So thank you for listening to Turn 2. We'll be back next week with the American League East. We are going to have special guest Jason Collette and Rob Silver on here. They almost had a partnership. Ray's moving up to Montreal. It's not going to happen anymore, so they can yell about that. Thank you for listening to the show. We'll be back next week. See you, everybody.